that you're all here, and we're super excited. And we're excited to be a quarantine family.
And it's good to see you all, even though it's over Zoom.
This is wonderful. We're super excited. So, so Jess and I thought we would talk a little bit about using arthropods for social emotional learning, either in your classrooms or, like I was saying before, even in your lives, because we find that we do it all the time. Sometimes if I'm scared to do something, like earlier this week, I had to apply for something and I was terrified, and I was like, how? I've chickened out for 4 years to apply to TED, for a TED fellowship. Chickened out every year for 4 years, and this year I waited until the last moment. I mean, the gasping breaths of a last moment.
It was kind of like imagining like a mayfly life cycle. That's how I like to think about it.
It was horrible. It was the worst. Yeah, and so so I was like, I can't teach about bravery and empowerment and stepping up into yourself and you know, trying something new. I'm a fraud basically if I don't apply for this thing, and I can't be a bug chick if I don't apply for this. So just using these animals all the time to think about ourselves, others, and the natural world. That's basically what we do with these animals. So we have a bunch of amazing arthropod pictures from our time in the Amazon, and we also brought some pictures of the students that we go with in October each year.
Yeah, and so I think what we'll do is we'll start out with that. We do have like some specimens and some live animals here too with a microscope that we will, of course, I mean, obviously some of these are familiar, right? But we'll put these under the microscope, and we've got some live animals that we'll show you all too. And then we'll make some more of those SEL connections.
Yeah. And I want to do open up for some talking with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I love
open it up to have. But you've been talking to me nonstop.
Sick of you. I've been here for 6 weeks, and I'm like, I'm ready for something new. I'm just kidding.
Breaking my heart. Right?
Yeah. So so I was thinking today, and actually let's just start with the Jason learning thing, because those students, hi Percy, those students are such an incredible example and such an incredible way that we really get to actively do this rather than sort of training the trainer. Seeing it in action is a really powerful thing. And so Krista hooked us up with Jason Learning, and so when we come home each July, we kind of turn back around and come back in October for a week, and it's teachers and students from different districts around the country, and they don't know each other. The teachers don't know the students don't know each other, and they get off the boat, you know, that 3-hour boat ride, and it's like the students, I mean, they pick it, right? Like they choose the Amazon week. Yeah. But it's like they didn't know what they were choosing. I mean, we all know that, you know, you're not prepared for it the first time you come into NAPO, but these students are hella not prepared for it. And so they get off the boat, and one of the biggest successes that we had was with this student named Sophie. But I wanted to talk about paths of engagement. Yeah. So with SEL and with arthropods, we kind of identified with these students for this talk tonight, these 3 different stories of students. I think all of these were about 15 to 17-year-old students. And they're different paths of engaging with the way that we teach. Because basically I think the Bug Chicks is arthropods and social emotional learning.
Yeah, completely
I think that
agree.
is literally just, that encompasses everything we do.
Yeah.
So I know that for the Educator Academy, we always talk about how we shouldn't rely on the tools, like the tools shouldn't drive it, but sometimes the tool can be a great, sorry, we're just admitting a couple more people here. The tool can be a great way to get someone involved. So let's introduce you right now to Pedro. He is a student from Texas, and let me share our screen here. Where is he? Oh my. Oh, here we go.
He is.
Okay, so, you guys, we brought Can you see this? Someone give me a yes in the thing if you can see the students here and you can see my cursor. Yeah. So this is Pedro here, and he is using with these two other students this probe that you can see. Basically on Amazon, I bought a sewer scope that you would use to look in your sewer line for like $19. And we brought it down to try and get students to do a scientific study on vacancy of tarantula holes, all the different burrows around Axe and Napo, right? And these students were not really into tarantulas. They were into science, but they weren't
super into bug science.
Yeah, they were super into being there, but you know, it's day one. They have 1 week to design, implement, do, and then write up a small scientific study. Ask some questions, do some observations, things like this. And so we had this tool, and I said, look, I think it might be neat if we did some vacancy rates of tarantula burrows. And this group of students were like, yeah, well, we'll do that, whatever. Pedro was very cool, a very cool student, pretty,
he was pretty aloof,
yeah.
and very much, he very much had that loner,
yeah,
like, that loner vibe. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
What are you doing?
Oh no, I was about to admit somebody else, but
oh, okay.
Look, I see them now. They're
oh, great. Hi. Yeah, he had sort of a loner, aloof vibe. And throughout the week of them using this tool, I noticed that he kept coming up to me and going, hey, do you have that sewer scope? And it would be like lunchtime. And I would be like, yeah, do you need it? And he was like, well, I just, you know, there's a hole that we didn't check, and I know it's not part of the program or part of the subset that we're looking at, but I just wanted to see if something was in there. And finally I just gave it to him for the week because I was like, just keep it, you know, just keep it for the week and let's see.
And he was teaching other students how to use it.
We went to Chachapa, and he was, I mean, he had 25 to 30 students following around. Cesar in person, you were there, you saw him going into every hole and scoping and really trying to find out what was in these holes.
Yeah, and it was a really great instance too of this sort of peer leadership where, you know, it was something that he was really super interested in, and it got him into the science. And then he was teaching everybody else how to use it, about the animals that they would find in those burrows. So it was a really great learning experience kind of all the way around.
I heard him, so we did Chachapa at the end of the week, and I actually heard him parrot something I had said earlier in the week as he was teaching the students at Chachapa.
Was it, I love you, butt?
He was scoping down in, and he had found a tarantula, and he said, now those are the shorter, like, mouth hand legs. They look like shorter legs, but they're actually the mouth hands. Like, he was parroting what I had said earlier in the week about tarantula body parts. And so I was kind of thinking today about the different pathways to engaging with science or with arthropods. And so I think really the tool can be an incredible path of engagement. Right? And then one of the other things I want to talk about is, are we back now? Yes, we are. Yeah. Okay. So one of the other things is we then had a student named Maddie. And so there are some students who are going to be super into the animals, right? Like the animal is going to be the path of engagement because they're sort of fascinated by the animals. They maybe don't know that much about arthropods, but arthropods are engaging in and of themselves, so they become the path of engagement. And I'll show you a picture of her. She's super cute, super into it. She named one of the mantises J-Lo. I mean, you know, she named everything. She was a kid after my own heart. I really liked her. Where is she here on our screen? Here she is.
Up there.
Okay, so this is Maddie, and here she's holding a tire tread millipede, and we've all seen these in the Amazon together. But this is her third or fourth animal that she's held. This is the first full day when we do sort of our big bug workshop. And it's a small group. This group was maybe 14 people with teachers, 7 students and 6 teachers, maybe 13. And so we got to handle a lot of animals. And she was in it right from the get-go because the animals were the hook. And so it was very easy to talk with her about bravery and decision making and things like that. And you know, now at the end of the trip, what did she say to us? She's from West Virginia, which is where Jesse's from. And she pulled us aside and she said, what did she say? She said it.
She said it was one of the most life-changing experiences she'd ever had.
Yeah.
She didn't expect to, something like she didn't expect to like love it the way she did.
Yeah, but I think,
but I don't remember what her exact
she
words were.
specifically was talking about coming from a place like West Virginia. And she was like,
yeah, because she was from an incredibly rural school.
We don't get experiences to get out of West Virginia. And will you come please, will you please come to West Virginia? And how do we, she said, I want to work with you to bring experiences to kids in Appalachia, because it's this incredible thing. And so sometimes we think about privilege and we think about, oh, it's these privileged kids getting to go down to the Amazon. And it is a privilege for sure, to be sure. But there's also layers of privilege. And so I was thinking about that arthropods and using them for engagement tools can be a way to obviously talk about otherness and about access and about just having an experience that you never thought that you would be able to have, or that people wouldn't spend the time with you to cultivate. And so we're going to talk about one other student, but I'd actually like to look at the chat here for a second. What you have made
Come up here to more.
Oh, yeah,
stop sharing. And then,
oh, good. Okay, here we go.
A
focal student, yeah. So Janelle has written in here, Pedro sounds like what we refer to in multi-STEM as a focal student. And so, Janelle, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what a focal student is in your mind. I think I have an idea, but I'd love to hear more about that.
So, yeah, it's typical as educators, we think about planning for the typical average middle student, right? But we tend to exclude the kids on the margins, the kids who come with the privilege that you mentioned, whether it's, you know, a strong academic background or a lot of confidence, or parents that pay for these kinds of experiences. Normally, while they certainly deserve our attention, they're going to be fine, but it's the kids on the lower end of things who tend to get weeded out. And so if we design our teaching and learning to engage those students, you know, the deficit view would call them the low students, the at-risk kids, the slow group, you know, the kids that get tracked away from this kind of thing. But if you can scoop up these kids with your instruction, you've got everybody. And so if you think about a couple kids, you know, it's like, and these are the kids that have the least access to these kinds of experiences. If you give them these kind of experiences, you get the transformative, like, that you were talking about. And so it opens up that pathway.
Yeah. And he became, I mean, he was a leader anyway, because he was the oldest student.
And he was the coolest.
He was the coolest. But also not cool in the way, like sometimes when I think of like a cool student, I'm like, ugh, I don't even want to get to know the cool student. He was the cool student where I was like, I want to know like everything about
everything
you,
about
He's
you,
a really, he had a gravitational kind of pull about him, and he used it for good.
Yeah, he was incredibly kind.
Yeah, he was a super great kid, and I
hooked him.
Huh?
You hooked him though.
Yeah, we hooked him, and it was funny. He went home and he bought a scope. Like he was like, I think I might do this. Like this might be like what I do. And so he follows us on Instagram, and he's constantly writing to us now, and he's like, you know, liking everything and commenting, and so he's very engaged still almost a year later. And yeah, you're right. If we can access the students who are on the outer boundaries, who don't get that normal netting, absolutely. Yeah. And that kind of brings us, that's beautiful, Janelle, that brings us to this last idea of engagement that we were kind of brainstorming, path of engagement. So for Pedro, we had the engagement was the tool. right? And then for Maddie, the engagement was the actual subject that we were talking about, the animals. And then for Sophie, who, can I just say, so we got to tell this story before we even show the picture.
Yeah.
The picture's like the end of the story,
that's
right?
True, that's true.
Okay.
All right.
So this is our first year with Jason.
Yeah, and so we're
2018.
trying to be cool. We're trying to pull a Krista, and so we're out on the dock, right, waiting for these students
With
to
our
show
coffee.
up with our coffee and like
Right.
our flip flops, and we're like, "Hey, kids, we're ready."
Like, oh, but we live here,
Yeah.
whatever. And so we're pulling a Krista, and we're also quite nervous ourselves. And if we want to talk about the social emotional component of being a teacher as well, using animals to engage students, we were really nervous.
Yeah.
And we don't super
Well,
get nervous, but this was nervous because Jason did
And also-
not know us.
And we didn't actually know them either, and it was just the teachers and the students from the program, Pat and Jude from Jason,
From
and
Jason
then
Learning.
us, but
and Percy and Cesar, and that was
yeah,
our
and
group.
then we the six of us kind of ran these kids for 24/7.
The kids and the teachers.
Yeah.
It was a pretty intense week, if I'm honest. It was 24 hours a day, and Krista and Kelly and Nancy, you know what we're talking about, where it's like you're never off. It's never like maybe
never
someone
a
else
break.
yeah, like maybe someone else is facilitating something, but in the background you're dealing with an emergency. And so so the first day they get on the boats, and we finally meet in person, Pat and Jude, who are from Jason Learning, and they're sort of auditioning us to see if we're going to be the science expert leaders for their trips from here on out. So we're nervous, and Jude gets off the boat, and she looks at me and she says, "You got your work cut out for you. There's a kid on the boat with a bandana over her nose." This is pre-COVID.
Well, she said, "You have your work cut out for you. You'll know who I'm talking
You'll
about."
know who I'm talking about. There's a girl, and she's got a bandana over her nose and a bandana pulled down over her eyebrows and over her ears. Her mother has told her that bugs will climb up into her nose and in her mouth and into her ears.
And not just while she's in the Amazon. This is while she's home. So this is a habit that she has established.
She sleeps in Houston covered with a bandana. The girl's got glorious red curly hair.
Yeah.
She's a real cutie pie.
Yeah.
She sleeps every night with a bandana on her head. And so we're like,
uh-oh.
okay. All right. So we do our first day, our first full day with her. And you know, you've been with us. We walk the animals around, and I just started her with a dead beetle because she was crying. She was
and I mean, for the first half of that sort of intro workshop that we did, she was like hyperventilating because she was so freaked out just by she could hear bugs and she could see bugs, and she
had a thought about a bug.
Yeah, and it was just,
we said the word bug. There was just a lot going on for her, and so we actually filmed every interaction she had with a bug throughout the week, and we'll send you that video. We should just send them Feeling Fear. It's so good. We made our SEL curriculum, and one of the videos is called Feeling Fear, and we kind of highlight her in this video. So her first interaction we get, and I am like, I am holding her and bug in hand. Jessica's behind her. I mean,
because we kind of had to hold her still.
She was, we just had to help.
Yeah, because she wanted to do it, and that's
did.
the thing, is that she wanted to do it, and so there was a lot of that positive peer pressure thing that we do.
So I kind of determined that her engagement factor was attention. We almost had to bring her. I'm going to use a graph. I'm the worst drawer in the world, but I constantly draw. Here we go. So basically, in my mind, here's the deal with. What's up, Percy? Hi, Percy. So Sophie was here at a -10. Here's 0, and here's 10. Right? 10 is yay bugs. 10 is the bug chicks. We had to work with attention and focus to get her to ground 0. And then we were able to teach her about the science and the animals. So at the end of the first full day, I walked back to the bathrooms, and this was the group with all girls.
Yeah.
It was all female students and female teachers. It was super
pretty
awesome.
cool.
I walked back and I said, Sophie, where's your bandana? She was not wearing any of her bandanas.
She just had on like a ball cap.
And I was like, where's your bandanas? And she was like, oh, I thought I'd try it out, that I wouldn't wear it, right? So then 2 days passed and I get footage of her holding a giant millipede. And she's holding it and she's like, 2 days ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this.
And she had picked it up on her own. This wasn't part of a workshop at all. She found it and she picked it up.
Final day, each day I'm trying to get her to hold a tarantula, right? I'm just trying to get her
Working
near
her up
a
to
tarantula. She's super freaked out. Each day I'm working on her. Finally, we're at Axe and we're about to get on the boat and go to the fancy one. Sabotops. We're about to leave. Like, it's time to go. And she hasn't held a tarantula yet. We find a giant, I don't know who found it, Percy or Cesar. Giant,
this big.
The biggest female pink toe I've ever seen. And we're like, it's now or never, Sophie. So,
oh, I know where it came from.
Where did it come from? Oh, that's right. Yes. We won't tell that story. That's fine. Where is this?
But I'll just give a double thumbs up because it was awesome.
Yeah,
it was fine.
Oh no, where is it?
Oh, there it is.
There
right
it is. Okay. So here we are. Here she is. Sorry, this is riveting, I'm sure, for you. Us like staring at
Where
our
is it?
computer.
Where'd it go?
Okay. So, do you see it, Jan? Can you help me? Okay. So this is Sophie. She's in her little ball cap. I'm holding this giant tarantula. I'm trying to like hold it and help her. She finally, we have footage of her putting her arm out and she lets it walk. And then it comes back to my arm and Jessie puts it back onto the rafter. And she is crying.
She's crying.
And I'm like, you did okay. You did good. And she's like, I did it. Like, I'm crying because I did it. She's having that moment of where, you know, and we see it a lot with students where they think, I didn't think I could. Now I know I can. I'm overwhelmed by this emotion.
Well, and it was a really kind of fantastic thing to be a part of too, because there was all of the teachers and then all of the students
rooting her
and
on.
they were like, come on, Sophie, come on. And it was like this kind of overwhelming support. And like,
I'm
Sophie
crying.
was crying. Everybody
Jessica's
was crying.
Pat is shaking.
Yeah, he's like, it's beautiful.
He's the only dude in our group, and he's like, you were wiping his tears away. So, so basically, I think those are sort of the three paths of engagement that we like to work from, and especially when you're dealing with what we're dealing with right now with the pandemic, which is how do we engage with our students? Some of our students are with us, some of our students are far away, some of our students maybe don't have access to computers or internet or the tools that we have. Like, how do we reach out and how do we engage? And I still think, I mean, I'm biased, but I still think bugs are the best way to do this.
Well, they're so versatile.
Yeah, there's tons of different ways. So right now, I hate not talking to people. Where is everybody? Let me stop the sharing. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, we're
Dawn.
also just reading the chat, by the way.
I feel you on this. About Dawn had a bug crawl into her ear, and then the doctor, she had to get it removed because it was against her eardrum. She can understand. Dawn, we totally hear you on this, and actually that is quite painful. It can be a really, really painful and intense thing. And I think, you know, I don't know, have we taught you, Dawn, before? I feel like we maybe have. We are also, this is another big thing, is that even though we're obviously like super bug dorks, I think anyone who has been around us knows that we do share a deep empathy for people's experiences that are not positive with bugs, because we used to be bug haters.
Yeah, and I mean, and even entomologists who love bugs and conservationists and people who were like, bugs are amazing, keep them around. Like, no matter how much we love them, we've all had really bad experiences with them.
Right.
And, you know, we go on and study them because, you know, it's like we recognize that is kind of an accident right? It's not in a bug's biology to
Yeah.
fly in your ear.
Or it's not the norm that you
Yeah.
have. Yes, Kristie,
Kristen, the
scorpion
scorpion in your boot.
It's not the norm that you necessarily have a bad experience.
Yeah.
Just because your brain is focused on the bad experience, that does not make it the norm. And I think this is a very clear tie to people. I have had many bad experiences with people. I'm still talking to people every damn day.
And isn't it statistically shown that people post like negative reviews of things more often than they do positive reviews? Because that's the thing that people fixate on.
People fixate on the negative, and it can, you know, again, this is another thing where social emotional learning comes into play about how we look at the world, and sometimes it takes practice to refocus or redirect in the same way that as teachers we have to redirect a behavior in a classroom. Instead of shutting down a student, it's taking that behavior and redirecting that energy into something positive. We have to do this with ourselves as well. Yes, Janet, they represent transformation, and they're indicators. Absolutely. So this brings us to this. I took a nap, and then I woke up and I freaked out, and I had an idea. It's on this, thank you. And then I came here and I was like, Jessica, this is what I was thinking. And then we brainstormed it all out. So,
yeah, Janelle, past trauma.
Past
sure.
trauma, absolutely. And actually, Janelle saw us deal with this in Denver when one of the teachers had a very specific cultural-based trauma with cockroaches. And we were bringing around a Madagascan hissing cockroach and talking about how cute it was. And she was saying, I cannot understand that word cute. And we then stepped back and said, please share with us your experiences. And she shared with us her experiences of growing up, I believe, in Mexico. And she talked about the cockroaches and her experiences. And then we all got to kind of join and share in that. And then she was able to not to overcome a cultural past trauma, but
work through it to a point where it was no longer quite so closed door.
Yeah, she wasn't as reactive, and then she was holding it and really into it. And so I think there are ways to connect. And so right now we're going to talk about specifically K-5 connections and then 6 through 12 connections.
Yeah, and actually
there's a shift.
Yeah, and before we jump into that, do you all have any questions or comments or
Krista, are we allowed to do a little bit of like talking to people?
Like I could stop you?
Okay, I mean, if you have a question, we want to hear your voice or a comment.
I have a question. Before y'all moved from the West Coast, did y'all end up getting to see a murder hornet?
Oh, I wish.
Dawn, you're killing me.
I wish.
We didn't. They were up in Washington, and we were in Oregon, and you know, I will say, and I know you're asking this probably like slightly a little bit tongue in cheek, but there's been so much misinformation on the internet about the
murder,
the giant Asian hornets. They just found the first male.
Yep, I saw that article.
And they found another queen. So it's really interesting. It's a shock. It's not a shocking discovery.
No,
because as entomologists we know that things are getting imported all the time.
Yeah.
But
I know on the East Coast, I just saw an email, someone posted on Facebook that Delaware, they're getting so many phone calls from people. They're having to educate the cicada killers.
Yeah.
People are getting confused and thinking the murder hornets are already on this coast.
Yes. And so this is a fascinating thing to think about if we think about judgments, like snap judgments, assumptions that we make about people, if we lump all into one. So like, okay, so there's one wasp, and it's not that we're not fascinated by the Asian hornets, these giant Asian hornets, it's that they don't belong in this ecosystem. So this is not an equation that we make with people. right? I want to be real clear about this because sometimes people will jump in on us when we are talking about insects and the connections we can make to people, and they go, don't compare us to a bug. And it's like, no, absolutely not. We feel you and we hear you on this. This is about, you know, with these introduced species of insects, it can be devastating, right? But then what's happening is people now have what I call their small eyes on. Now they're seeing bugs, and it's like, oh, cicada killers have been here for 250 million years in Delaware. Delaware hasn't been here that long, but the cicada killing wasps have been here that long. You are just now seeing them. And so what's happening when you have one of these big news stories that's so sensationalized, people become little bug dorks. They're like, oh, I saw this and I saw that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and it can take kind of a more sinister turn too, kind of like thinking about all these people who were freaking out over the cicada killers.
Right.
You know, because it's like with people turning into bug dorks, sometimes people often can also turn into bug experts.
Oh.
And it's like, oh, well, it's got a stinger and it's big. So
and it's striped. It must be this.
It must be this. And because it stings, it must be bad. Which, you know, it sort of can take us down another path. But, you know, it's not something that you can really equate, you know, the ability to sting with the intention,
right?
You know, or the desire to do so.
Or even the biological capacity.
Yeah.
The whole thing makes me crazy. So Linda, you were asking a question. 2 weeks ago, we sent home science kits for bio and environmental science students. There was an aspirator in the kit. Thoughts on how to use these with high school students? Yes, absolutely. Do you have an aspirator?
I do. Let me grab it.
This is so exciting. So Jessica and I made 5 different exercises, and we sort of targeted them for K through 5, but honestly, they work really nicely for students who are at home right now anyway. And so we do a combination of like nature journaling, nature observations, walking around your block, like a targeted walk around your block to find certain things. So with an aspirator, the most important thing, the most important thing for success with an aspirator is making sure that the filter, the internal filter is on that suction device, because you'll regret it. The student will not be into bugs ever again if they suck up bugs into their mouth. But once that's in place, it's a really safe and fun way to engage with teeny tiny insects. They should not be sucking up,
like, don't suck up bees,
paper wasps.
You know,
that's actually really funny. They like little gnats, even mosquitoes.
Yeah,
suck
like
up for
aphids, little teeny tiny beetles. Basically, if it's too small for you to grab with your hands, it's perfect for an aspirator.
What I would do is I would challenge the students to go on a scavenger hunt, and I would do specific habitats instead of going, oh, go suck up bugs and see what we find, which is also fun. I think that maybe they should do something where they are only turning up leaves and finding what lives on the underside of a leaf. So that will give you certain things like aphids and other things. Then they can also make observations about what's around those animals on the undersides of leaves, which might be sticky or might be residue or something like that, because you said that they are bio and environmental science. So you can make a lot of great connections about how aphids impact different ecosystems.
And you can also compare between different habitats too, because just thinking about aphids, like they're really big on vegetables and crop plants, but they're also really big on ornamental plants.
Right.
So like, how do the species different? Like, what's the difference between the species there? You know, what are there any that overlap? You know, what's the
They also have some differences in their reproductive biologies. So there are winged, there are non-winged, there are mummified aphids.
Oh yeah,
which have been parasitized by parasitoid wasps, and they look different. They look a little bit like
they look like when those people stand on the sidewalks and they're like all painted in gold.
Yes.
And you have to drop like money in their box and then they like move or sing or something.
Yeah, I was going to say that it looks like if you put a latex glove on your hand and like blow it up and then take it, like it looks like a hand, but it's like the casing of a hand. Do you blow up a latex glove? Because they look like kind of puffed up and like.
Oh, I've only ever seen them as. Are you talking about like with cordyceps?
No.
Oh,
Mummified aphids.
Because I've only ever seen the ones that are like bronze and they look like statues.
Yeah,
of the aphids.
yeah, but
they're like in like mid stride.
Yeah,
super
they're like in a
weird.
casing. They're really cool.
Hey, can I ask a quick question on it?
Of course.
So, ours is a homemade aspirator, so it's tubing and pantyhose.
Excellent. That's good.
Yeah, because it's cheap, right? So yeah, I'm wondering. I'm guessing they should double up the pantyhose, just making sure they don't suck up a bug.
No.
If you have the pantyhose, that's fine. I think one layer of pantyhose is totally fine with
Yeah, and honestly, the ones that you get from BioQuip that like we used in grad school, it's just glorified pantyhose and tubing too.
Yeah.
We just,
we just
shell
want
out
to make
more.
sure I just think it's best to help them make sure that is covering.
It is important though, like every time they use it, just double check and make sure there's not like rips in it, where they could then suck it up through the rip. Just make sure that, the hose are intact and it should be fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks.
Of course.
Okay, so I think we should maybe talk about, what should we talk about? What do you want to know about? Because we've got animals to show you under the scope. We've got blue Morpho butterfly scales to show you, where we can talk about color and pigment and things like that.
Yeah, but if there's anything specific that you're interested in knowing about with SEL and tying that into your classrooms this year, we're also happy to answer those. So whatever you all need.
Because we have this sort of difference that we kind of worked out K through 5 and 6 through 12. How can you get insects in our classroom? Who's your guy? Oh, Colleen. I'm going to write a little thing here. Our guy is bugs in cyberspace. Bugsincyberspace.com.
Yeah.
And if you tell him that you are sent from the Bug Chicks, you'll get a 10% discount on anything you buy. Now, we also have a Insects in the Classroom best practices and best. Phil, thank you for purchasing that. You're so sweet. We're going to talk about that in a second, Phil. Best practices for bringing bugs into the classroom, best practices for keeping them alive. I will give you a tip right now. If you go to your local pet store and you get, let's say you have a tarantula from our guy, he will know if they are captive bred or if they're wild caught. We like captive bred, and that's why we like him, because he knows the difference and he knows what stock he has. If you go to a pet store and you're like, I'm going to get a cage and some substrate and some things, the people at the pet store will try to sell you a reptile cage heater. This will kill your animals most likely. Also, you want a plastic or acrylic cage. You don't really need a glass terrarium for these things. It will make it easier for transport and also just to have in a classroom. And so what we use, this is our top tip, we use a plant seed sprouting mat. A, they're larger, and B, they only get up to about 75, 78 degrees, and you can use them with plastic cages.
Yeah, the mats they sell you for the reptiles, you have to use them with glass cages, otherwise they will melt your they'll melt your acrylic.
And also your animals will desiccate and dry out. So we have a great ebook, and actually we'll share that with you. We'll share that with Krista, and Krista will just send it out to you. It tells you what species we love in the classroom, which species are long-lived, because there's nothing worse than getting real excited about your bugs and then they die. And which species are the best for captive breeding and things like that. Okay, so then Phil just purchased our Different curriculum. Jessica and I created a curriculum called Different, Social Emotional Learning using Arthropods, and it is for 6th through 12th graders, though we have NGSS matched it for 4th and 5th grades as well. It's NGSS matched, and it's also CASEL matched. CASEL is the consortium on
The collaboration of academic social emotional learning.
So we have matched it to all of their different, their sort of 5 tenets of social emotional learning. And it's, Phil, what you're going to want to do on using that with online teaching, we've done a couple things to upgrade it for you. One thing is we have a remote option. So you won't share your login with your students. You'll log in and get the link we have it's very clearly mapped out on the website when you go in. We've created a remote learning option so that the students can access like a private Vimeo album of the 10 videos, and then you can use the rest of it super easily.
Yeah.
Send them the PDFs of the questions, use
the project,
the group discussion,
all that
the
good
project,
stuff, yeah.
and of course the assessment. The assessment's very important. Please, please have your students do it, because we're writing a paper for American Entomologists on emotions and learning with insects, and we're going to be using, I used to think, now I think, from Harvard's Project Zero, which is how we designed the assessment for the students, and we're going to be using IBM's Watson's IBM Natural Language Learning Understanding Program, which is a bad name. They should learning understanding that.
They should change that.
Yeah. But basically what that does is it will give us quantitative information based on qualitative sentiment and tone change from students, which is like so exciting. And we've already gotten some feedback from the students.
Yeah.
And it's kind of amazing that they really see the connections, not just on a personal, like, oh, I can be brave and I can do anything, but like on a social awareness and even a social justice spectrum. So Jessica and I just went through and we really created some incredible connections for teachers to make. It's a huge new booklet that we've created with this. And thank you very, very much to Janelle. She has helped us formulate a lot of our questions, and she's just been very, very helpful during this year-long process of finalizing the curriculum on that. So thank you, Janelle. All right, what do we have here? Can you make any connections between ways insect colonies keep safe and functioning and how human colonies can stay safe? Oh, Seth, yes, actually, here's what we were talking about. So basically, Seth, what grade do you teach, Seth?
I teach high school French.
High school French.
Excellent.
I love this. So, yes. So we kind of made this kind of grid. I think K through 5 for social emotional learning is a lot about skills based. I think it's sort of like, here's how a team works. Here's how we work in our classroom. Here's how we manage our bodies in a classroom and our voices in a classroom. Here's how we work with empowerment and bravery. Here's how we work with sharing, things like this. And then all of a sudden there's this shift, 6 through 12, and it's about the world at large. Rather than yourself in your little world, it becomes yourself as part of this larger experience. And it becomes more about emotional intelligence. Right as kids are entering puberty, it all of a sudden is like, let's now be incredibly emotionally intelligent people. And
makes a lot of sense.
That's tricky, right? And so it's about how we react to things, how we process things, how we perceive and how we see things. And so I love, Seth, that we can talk about, I mean, look, insect colonies, you're talking about eusocial insects for the most part. Ants, bees, wasps. You're talking about some social cockroaches. You're talking about
beetles.
Some social beetles. So we know a lot about bees and wasps and things. I love the idea of talking about these beetles. Let me show you. Oh, ooh, I brought down a picture of one of them, didn't I, Jessica? Let me get it for you. You talk about pasalids for a second, and I'm going to find this picture.
All right, so passalid beetles, they are also called patent leather beetles or best beetles. And they're actually really cool to keep in the classroom, but we don't really recommend it because you can't really, they're really hard to captive breed. But they live in galleries in family groups. So you've got the male and the female, and then I think some sibling adults, and then they all rear the young, the immature larvae together. And so they stay in these little family groups, and they eat kind of dead wood, and they chew through these galleries, and they create like little homes for themselves in these pieces of dead wood.
And Seth, this directly connects to what you're talking about, because these animals live in wood. It's very hard to see. They don't have great eyesight. And so they make 13 different noises by rubbing their coccyx together. And their coccyx are their little elbow joints right where they connect on their sternum, right? And so they make 13 different click, buzzing noises, and they communicate. They have a language, and actually they make more than 13, but really
it's only what scientists have been able to
decipher and figure out what the kind of like words and languages are. So so this is a fascinating thing to think about when we're talking about how do humans stay safe with COVID. Honestly, the reason why people have been safe or not safe comes down to one thing, I think, and that's communication. As I choke on the word communication. Communication. I think the difference between success during a pandemic and chaos is clear, concise, and consistent communication from the people who are in charge. And so if you wanted to talk about communication skills and then bake that into, and you're a French teacher, how beautiful, what a beautiful connection. So if you think about how people talk over each other from different languages, or if you think about
some
how
people talk louder at others from different languages.
Right. Or if you think about how certain languages have the same word, but many different words for the same word, where other languages just have one. I think that could be a really beautiful way to combine a story about the biology of an insect, and this is not fully formed because you just asked this question, but I'm going with it. The biology of an insect with communication issues around this pandemic, where students are feeling very stressed and very confused because they're getting messages from their parents, they're getting messages from the public health officials, we're getting different messages from government, either local and national, and
it's overwhelming because people also feel alone because we have to quarantine.
And so I think there's a beautiful connection that can be made there. If you want to work with this, we would love to. I'm already like, whoa, my brain is going crazy. That's very exciting. I love that idea.
Great question, Seth.
Great question, Seth. Okay. All right, people.
There was another one up there that we might want to
make sure.
I think. Did I miss one?
I don't know.
Oh, that one.
Field studies. 11th and 12th graders do some field studies in the fall.
Specific prompts question. Should I ask them to observe while they're sitting outside for 15 minutes?
Yes. I think they should do blocks of 15-minute observations. 15 minutes is quite long. I would start with maybe 10-minute or 5-minute observations and maybe do chunks of them. And so, because you want to end on success, because again, we're talking about they're going to have their phones, they're going to have, so definitely lay down constructs of rules, put your phones away, put your timer on, turn your phone over, you're observing for 5 minutes. Maybe they're watching one group of flowers and they are talking about they're quantifying contact of insects. That's one way that you could really structure a nature observation. And then maybe they go to another patch of flowers and do the same thing, and you've got comparative data. Maybe it is something where you are observing
like insect density.
Yeah,
you could over a bigger plot, like not just like on one flower, but like maybe you've got like
the biocubes.
The biocubes, exactly. Or if I'm not sure if your students are in class or in remote, or
I think they're
in remote.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, and everybody's backyard is going to be different. Maybe for someone it's a city park, maybe it's a country park, maybe it is sidewalk.
Yes.
And
actually, Dawn, Kristen makes a great point here. There's going to be a webinar in November dedicated to nature journaling and field observations with Kirsten Franklin.
Yes.
She's an expert at this. She really is amazing at this. Before you go, I want to show you a bug. We haven't showed you any bugs yet. Just really quickly, we went to Purdue University yesterday and we got basically the coolest thing we've ever seen. And we cannot let you leave tonight without seeing this animal, because we had never seen one before.
We've only ever seen the adults.
Okay.
Which, show the adult.
Oh gosh, yes. Okay. God. Oh God, we have the adult. God.
So here's the adult.
So this is a Hercules beater. This is an eastern.
Right?
We've got a western over here. But down in the Amazon, we see this, but it's just like on a larger scale, right? So these are horned beetles. This is a male. You can tell it's a male from from the horn that comes off of the pronotum and then off of the front of the face, and they kind of battle other males and they try to tip each other over, right?
And you can tell it's kind of dried out because the exoskeleton is that kind of like banana yellow green color with the brown spots.
Yeah.
The more humid it gets, the darker it gets.
We actually have a video about matter of environment in our SEL curriculum where we talk about how people can be perceived differently in different environments. And we talk about how these animals change color in different environments, and there are different insects that respond to environmental changes. And we talk about that with humans too, with either attitudinal changes or perceptions of other people based on where you see them. And that's kind of fascinating. I tell a story about when I was in 6th grade and I saw my teacher out to dinner with her husband at an anniversary dinner. And I was like, oh my God, my teacher's like, ugh. And that he kissed her hand because it was their anniversary. And I like didn't know what to do with it. And then I started to I kind of didn't like this teacher. And I started to realize over the year, like, God, she's like a human, like she goes home. Like
she has like a family.
She's like a family. And she has
people who like her.
Does stuff. And it really changed how I saw her. And so this concept of seeing people in different environments can change how we feel about them. Anyway, oh my gosh.
Hold on. I'm like
freaking out. I'm so, are you going to pick it up? I'm going to pick it up. Okay.
Okay.
Let's focus, people.
Are you ready? I love it. Watch it.
Okay, now watch. This is the larva. Oh, it's moving. It's moving.
Look at its little bubble face.
Oh my gosh. So this is a female of the same species, or of
okay,
a
we're
very
gonna put it
similar
under the
species.
microscope.
We're gonna put it underneath the microscope.
Basically,
really
it's so in love with this
and
thing.
it's so waxy. I've
All right,
never felt anything
give me that,
like it.
Give me that trackpad.
Oh, what's happening? Oh my God.
Give me the trackpad
so
so I can swap.
Here. Okay.
Okay.
Oh my God. Just yeah. Okay.
Okay. Here we go.
Here we go. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I'm on it.
You got it?
I'm on it. Oh yes.
Look at its little awesome body.
Now you can see it moving. Did you know that some pupae in their pupal forms, they move like this? So
turn it over. Show the spiracles.
This is what we call. So this is the back. Here's the little spiracles. This is what we call an exarate pupa. So as opposed to a butterfly chrysalis or a pupa of a moth that is kind of all enclosed within that sort of pupal casing, this is exarate, meaning that the legs are free of the body, and you can see the legs forming on the outside of the animal. So these are the 6 legs. These are the wings. This is quite a new pupa. As it gets older in the pupal form, it is going to be sort of more of that banana color, and we'll be able to see the elytra. Yes, Dawn. Yes, Krista.
Those are the spiracles.
Little black holes right here. These are the abdominal spiracles. There are thoracic spiracles, but they are underneath these forming wings.
Yeah. So this right here.
That's the
right
elytra.
Yep. That's the wings forming.
Look at the little mouth parts forming.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, people.
It's basically the cutest thing we've ever seen.
Now again, this is a female. It does not have the horn. The male pupa would have a long horn. Oh my gosh. Are we muted that whole time?
No, we're not muted. Steph's muted.
Okay. Freaked out that we were muted.
Yes, Dawn.
Yes,
we totally
we will post.
We're so
pictures.
in love with this animal.
It's got the most amazing feel. It feels like a crayon or like the waxy softest. Oh, so good. Joanne, we have missed you too. People, this was very exciting and we super loved this. Can we, if you have any other questions out loud, please ask us. We want to see your.
Yeah, we've got. Yeah.
Turn your cameras back on.
Yeah, we want to see your faces.
No cameras.
We've got another 3 minutes to look at your faces.
Yeah. Anyone has any other questions or comments about what we talked about or anything? We're into talking with you about it. Oh, and if you don't know who we are, this was a pretty good, very frenetic.
Yeah, if you don't know who we are, that's Kristie. I'm Jess. Hello.
Fiorella, I have a gift for you. I need to send you. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Yes. All right.
Oh my gosh, y'all.
Well, we have super adored this, and obviously we love our work. And if you have any questions, needs, concerns, if you need anything, basically, we will help you with this. And it's been super great to see you. Was this interesting or helpful at all for you? Was this good? This is good.
Yes, very helpful. I know this is all awkward when you say goodbye on, you know. On
I know, we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Talk about social emotional learning. I'm like,
I just wanted to add.
this is great.
Yeah, so my whole thing for going to the Amazon was to be inspired, and I just cannot believe what has happened in the last 12 months. And, you know, I've kind of lost the inspiration a little bit, or just got caught up in whatever, but I am still inspired to this day. And I just am so thankful for this whole group and reconnecting. And I've stayed close to some of you guys, and seeing Linda again and everything. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Krista, thanks for giving us the opportunity to chat with everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I apologize, you guys. I've had some computer issues tonight, so I've been locked up part of the time and couldn't get my mouse to work. So I didn't do an official hey, don't forget about the webinars coming up, but we've got several planned for the rest of the year. Kelly Keena's up next month on place-based education. October is Brian Griffiths with camera trapping. November's Kirsten, and then Katie Filan's going to do primates in December. And then we've got New York Botanical Garden on tap for January with plant morphology. So we're trying really hard to give opportunities to keep you all connected, and it means the world to us too, to be able to have these regular meetings and get to see your faces and reconnect with all of you as well as the faculty. So thank you, Kristie and Jess, for your time again tonight, and for just giving us all a little extra juice that I know we all need. I know I can speak for Nancy and Kelly and I that we think about you guys every single day, and what you're walking through right now is just incredible. If you're interested, we've had some informal chats with alumni. We're going to keep posting those in different formats. If you just feel the need to jump on and talk with people that you don't necessarily work with every day, sometimes that's a nice break from everything too. So anyway, we'll do our best to keep you all posted, and thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. And we're going to facilitate the leaving here. So we're going to go like this. And we adore each and every one of you. And for those of you who are new to us tonight, thank you so much for joining. This was super fun. We really, really loved it. And